Well, early polls are open for voting here in BC. If you missed your opportunity to order a mail-in ballot, waiting's not going to improve things. Lines will only get longer. You know how easy it is to just let things like this slip by you. How's that mail-in ballot? I turned mine around within an hour of receiving it, but I wonder how many people have them sitting on a counter somewhere unopened. I've talked in some of my other videos about government envelopes and people's perchance to choose not to open them. Let's get it open, let's get it filled out, let's get it in the mail. Only takes 5 minutes. Isn't something to be dragging your ass on. If you didn't choose to mail in your ballot, which I got to tell you was a sweet way to go, then there is no way to avoid lineups. But what you shouldn't do is avoid your obligation as a citizen to exercise your voting option. Tough times give even more reason for people to speak up. The voting system that we have is every man and woman's tool to communicate their overall sentiments. It's going to be another strange result, I'm sure, in British Columbia with this election. In Canada in general, if you look at what we've done, it seems like from federal to provincial, we basically have, you either got two conservative parties battling it out for the conservative vote, or in the case of BC, you got the left and the even further left battling it out for the left vote. And unfortunately, in BC, even what you might think of as the conservative vote, more normally in Canada, we think is a left to center vote. So we got the Liberals left of center, we got the NDP purely on the left, we got the Greens way out there in far left field. We don't really have a conservative choice in BC. I was half speculating prior to this pop election call that this might be the time that BC's infamous Social Credit Party would pick to be resurrected. It seems, well, other than the fact that maybe BC voters don't support it, but it seems like an opportune time if you have three basically left parties running, splitting the vote, chopping it up, making it into mincemeat. Wouldn't need very much of the popular vote to reestablish a conservative stronghold. It's almost like the opposite thing is happening on the federal stage. Conservatives can't seem to quit fighting amongst each other, and that messes up our federal vote. That one I'm a little concerned about, because we watched for quite a few years when the conservative vote on the other side of our southern border was also all chopped up like this, infighting, backstabbing. And when they finally decided to consolidate, they ended up on a path I'd rather not see Canadian conservative follow. So you don't really know what to say to them. I wonder, when I'm thinking about it, whether the fact that there is no Conservative Party of any sort in British Columbia is also related to the fact that federally, Conservatives can't agree on whether it's daytime or nighttime anymore in this country. But if the only thing that's going to pull them together is some kind of an alliance around the Jesus vote, like seems to have happened in the U.S. quite some time ago, and I don't think we need any of that in this country. When I went to school, we were taught that it was a huge advance in society when we learned to govern ourselves with a complete separation of church and state. Sometimes I worry that might be one of those kind of knowledges that you can forget and lose. I kind of think maybe we might be forgetting that in some parts of the world. I have a couple songs that claim that Jesus was a carpenter. I don't remember ever hearing anything about Jesus being an economist. Did you vote? Will you vote? It's so important. It's one of the areas where we're not doing very well. If you see consistently year on year significant double-digit percentages of unexercised voting options, is that democracy giving up on itself? Or if you're one of those non-voting people, maybe you can share with us, is it you giving up on yourself? Do you think you're not worthy to participate with the rest of us in making the decisions that will drive our future? The tenements of democracy are based on the fact that everyone's worthy. Doesn't mean everyone's right. That's a often misunderstood concept of democracy. But everyone's worthy to participate in the process. And I guess one of the things we don't talk about when it comes to democracy, but we must accept because it sort of goes hand in hand with all the rest of it, is sometimes maybe it's what's best for society at a given moment to be sympathetic to a feeling and an opinion rather than the actual facts. The math for why democracy would work and work well, if you like to study that kind of stuff, is all based on everyone, or, I guess everyone's a big word, shouldn't have used it. Sorry, I take that back. For democracy to work the way it's envisioned, the way we can homogenize the views of all people together to come up with the best view for society as a whole, that requires a very, very significant percentage of voter participation. such that other more philosophical minds before me, such as Robert Heinlein and Mark Twain, have suggested on occasion that for democracy to work, voting might have to be mandatory, and B, for democracy to work intelligently, the vote might have to be an earned privilege. I think both of those would be probably considered pretty right-wing views, although if you know anything about Robert Heinlein, I certainly wouldn't have called him a right-wing philosopher. But that particular view could be thought of as right-wing, but it could also just be thought of as maybe a direction that things have to be tweaked a bit. Because I will say this about the left. The further people get to the left, it seems to me, the less willing, the less open their minds are, the less willing they are to hear anything but their own strident voices. Now, on the other hand, I did a rant just yesterday, I think, about the Jesus vote. And that's certainly the other side of it, all the way onto the right, so far onto the right that most of the things that are important to everybody else on the right don't even matter anymore. So I guess both sides of the spectrum have it. And they probably both need to be there for democracy to work and yield best results. And they don't talk about this in political science class either. But for democracy to work, there kind of has to be a level of conflict. If you had a democracy that was being held up to the world or the United Nations as the model, because we have no debate, no argument, call it a one-party democracy, everybody's in agreement, where there is no official opposition, there is no fringe parties. You can see that might be proudly boasted about in international circles and at the UN as being the model of cooperative democracy. I would argue, though, that it's not a democracy at all. It's more like a flock. And the idea of democracy was never to homogenize thoughts, views, and opinions to create a flock. Human beings are better than that. There's no point in having all this gray matter in the cranium if we're just going to be sheep. It doesn't take a whole lot of thought power to be sheep, or any other prey species for that matter. Democracy counts on everybody understanding that they don't just have the right to vote, they have a societal obligation to vote. If you do not vote, you should not speak out at all. Because refusing to vote is the ultimate submission to the flock. The sheep do not participate in the governance of the flock. Man and his dogs do. If you do not vote, just go back to quiet grazing and stay out of the rest of the conversation. Anybody can run their mouth. It's only once in a while that we're asked to make it count. I'm just going to look you all in the eye right now and tell you, if you're muttering stuff about not having time for lineups, get over yourself. Honest to God, I don't care who you are, there is not one single Canadian, or probably one single citizen anywhere in the world, who does not have the time to vote. That is, get over yourself. Unfortunately, for democracy to work, we have to somehow convince you narcissists to just, put in a box for 15 minutes and go do your civic duty. Just saying.